Hey everybody, we are joined by John Wojciechowski, the Packers Director of Player Personnel. John, thank you for joining us. Could you put into layman's terms somewhat of a job description?
Yeah, layman's term. For myself, I oversee the pro department as far as handling free agency and handling in-season responsibilities. The gist of the job also is the day-to-day operations, dealing with injuries, working with the training staff, and a little bit of a liaison to our football tech department. But yeah, layman's terms, that's probably about it. And also assist with the draft process and whatever else Brian needs.
Could you talk about, this is your 28th season coming up in the NFL. Could you talk about your career path? How'd you get started?
Yeah, got started, I got an internship with the Steelers. It was more, I wanted to be in sports and in football and any way that I could get in. And I was fortunate enough to have that opportunity in Pittsburgh right out of college to be able to start my career and to start with another iconic franchise in the Steelers.
Now, besides Pittsburgh, you've also been with Jacksonville and Dallas. Having a variety of backgrounds, is that helpful today?
Absolutely.
Seeing the way other people do it?
Yes, absolutely. I've been fortunate enough to be around a lot of good coaches, organizations, Jacksonville, Tom Coughlin, Dallas, Bill Parcells, amongst other coaches too, Wade Phillips, Jason Garrett. So, yeah, absolutely. It's been the experience and the philosophies that I've been able to gather my knowledge from. It has been, well worth the travel.
You're a football guy through and through. How'd you settle on the personnel side of the business as opposed to coaching it?
Yeah, that was interesting to the fact of getting in from college, because I was all set to actually be a defensive coordinator at my high school. And then the opportunity came up for the internship. And from there, I was there 2 years, and I just fell in love with the process of being able to evaluate, and was fortunate enough to be good at it and take off from there. And then coaching wasn't a thought after that.
Has there been a most influential person on your professional career? Or
Yeah.
persons?
Yeah, I feel Coach Parcells was a big moment in my career since I started out young. I think when I went to Dallas and he was there, I think lights really started coming on as far as philosophies and how to go about your business and evaluating.
As far as going about your business, do you have some guiding principles? I mean, you've been in it almost 30 years. Mm-hmm. Do you have some guiding principles you live by?
Yeah, it's very similar to Pittsburgh's philosophy. The draft and develop, and then free agency, you supplement some things. But mainly, especially in this salary cap world of football, you need to be able to develop the young guys. And I truly believe in that. And when you need to, you can bring in some older free agents that can plug some spots for you.
Does working in the personnel business in the NFL require a certain kind of courage? I mean, you don't want groupthink.
No.
Does it require a certain kind of courage?
Absolutely. In this business, you're paid for your opinion. And in the scouting world, personnel world, you have to be able to stick to your guns and just know and remind yourself, hey, this is what I'm paid for. It may not be the popular choice or opinion, but we want to be able to give Brian, the general manager, as much good information and opinions, to help him come to a decision.
Do you have to be a detail guy to be successful in personnel?
Absolutely. It is football, and you get to watch football for a living, but you've got to have everything in a row, and there's a lot to look at and manage, especially dealing with both sides, college and pro. You got to be organized. You got to have a process, and the process will help lead you if it's right in the right direction.
You finished your career at Duquesne University as the school's all-time leading sacker and a 3-time captain.
Yes.
How does that playing background affect what you do today, if it does?
Yeah, no, it does.
What was your best move?
Yeah, my best move was to swim, get off the ball, and be quick. Yeah, I don't look it now, but I was an undersized defensive end. I was about 215, 220 pounds. And so, and that's part of where watching film came in, because through my college career, I had to watch it. Had to watch the film of going against these big tackles constantly and studying them. And yeah, it was always more relentless than skill necessarily, and getting off the ball. That was the key. Now, as far as how it translates today, I take a lot of those lessons of being a captain and having those responsibilities into what I do now. And you got to take pride in that, and I have to be at my best in order for to help those who are working around me to be at their best too. So,
do you find yourself gravitating toward the big guys, the rough stuff?
Yeah, actually, I'd be lying if I said no. But it's, to me, down in the trenches is where the game starts and ends on both sides of the ball, and it's a constant battle every play. So, yeah, I find myself watching that a lot.
I've always wondered about this, like, okay, you know what you did as a player, and I'm sure that's kind of helpful in that particular area when you start scouting. But then how long does it take to where you get comfortable with, wide receivers? How does that process work?
Yeah, it's trying to think of the best way. You're constantly building a library, as a scout. And sure, when you began, or I began, you don't have many books in that library, but it takes someone who has the knowledge and experience to want to teach you, and I was fortunate enough in Pittsburgh to have that. I had a guy, Charles Bailey, who he would, whatever jobs I was doing for the day, he'd say, get in here and watch film. And he'd sit there and he'd mentor me, and he'd point things out. So I don't know an exact time frame for it, but there, it's once you do it and you hit on a guy and you get a guy right, then you start gaining that confidence.
Now, Woj, you interviewed for the GM job in Pittsburgh, your hometown team. There are only 32 of these jobs in the universe.
Yes.
And they ended up going in-house. But what did you take away from that experience?
From that experience was gaining more knowledge, of what it will take to become a GM. And in that interview process, there's things that I had not thought about, but now it's on my radar, and it goes into my book, and it constantly, again, a process, right? And so now I feel like I have a better process for those interviews, hopefully future interviews, for those positions. So that it was a process for sure, but it was a good experience.
No, you talk about rarefied air, 32 in the world.
Yeah.
Anyway, going back to your current job, most satisfying part of it?
Being able to come here every day, working with the people that I get to work with on a day-to-day basis, allowing me having the opportunity to help the Green Bay Packers get to the Super Bowl. Being a part of that, being a part of this team is the most gratifying thing to me.
On the flip side, the most challenging part of your job?
Probably the day-to-day things that come up. You know, you got to be the stuff that you're not prepared for. You know, you on the fly, you got to adjust to situations. And being up here now for 6 years, going on 7 years, that's probably one of the more challenging things. I mean, what you don't know is coming around the corner is probably the most challenging.
Analytics, measurables, tangibles, intangibles.
Yeah.
How do you balance all that?
Again, I hate to go back to it, but the process, right? You're using all these metrics and analytics, and they're all pieces to the puzzle. And what you got to do is hopefully by April for the draft, you got those puzzle pieces arranged, where they're fitting nicely and you feel good about it. It's just a matter of when to apply each of those, and when you're looking at a player, that really determines, and helps clear the picture once you put all of them together.
I'll give you a scenario. Okay, John Wojciechowski is named GM of an expansion NFL team. Mm-hmm. You're starting from square one.
Yep.
Where do you start? How do you build that team?
Quarterback's number one. It's the hardest position in football to play, and there's a reason why they're the highest paid players once they become successful. But I think quarterback wise, and then up front wise, you gotta be able to protect them, but not only up front on offense, but up front on defense also. Like I was saying earlier, you gotta start with your foundation, and I think that's where you start, is quarterback and then your lines.
How do you see your current Packers team's roster? How are we personnel-wise?
Yeah, might be biased, but I think we're solid up front, like we were talking. Jordan's coming on, and I think overall talent-wise, I think we got a lot of talent. It's just a matter of them now coming together and as a team and putting it out on the field and performing. There's a lot of good players, a lot of good people on the team, on the roster right now, and I feel good that they were going to be able to put it together.
Woj, almost 30 years in the NFL business. I mean, your entire professional life, basically. What do you like about football?
Everything. Everything. The competition, it's so high. It's the highest level, right? And not only the competition, but it's truly a team sport, a team business throughout. There isn't one person that can handle everything from player-wise, and there's not one person that can handle everything on the business side of things. And everyone has to work together, and you have to communicate. I think that's what I love. I love the challenge of making all of that work and being able to get the right pieces into place.
One last thing for you, John. It's kind of a personal deal. What grade were you in when you could spell your last name?
Well, yeah, exactly. No, that was actually one of the first things I had to learn, was how to spell the last name.
13 letters worth.
Oh yeah, so kindergarten was actually
good for you.
When I knew that. That was like before my address or anything. It was like 13 letters. You got to know how to spell your last name. Yeah. So I tried to put Woj down on a paper one time. My dad saw that and he said, "Never again." So, yeah, wrote it all out from there on in.
John Wojciechowski, one of the Packers' unsung heroes.